Friends, welcome to the first episode of 2025. I hope you had a wonderful holiday season and I wish you all the best for this new year that's beginning. Today we're going to be learning about a series of stories that have nothing to do with each other but are worth telling because they're connected in completely mysterious ways. Remember that you can send me your own experience to the WhatsApp number that's currently showing on the screen. It doesn't matter how many voice messages you send or how long they are, but please include as many details as possible. And as always, I would love for you to leave me a comment so I can know your opinion about the stories we're going to hear today. Or maybe something similar has happened to you at some point in your life. Friends, now let's not waste any more time and let's start with today's new video. Welcome!
How are you, Andres? My name is Leighton. I'm Ecuadorian, but I've been living in Italy for 15 years, specifically in Arcore, about 15 minutes from Milan. I think I have a lot to tell you, so many paranormal experiences, if we can call them that. But let's go with this specific one, which is what happens to me, what happens here in this house where I live for about 2.5 years now.
The initial plan when we found this house was to move in with my partner, the mother of my children, but it was a twist of fate. Maybe just a few days before we actually moved in, we had a series of very intense arguments that ended in our separation. The house contract was already finalized by then, so I was the one who ended up moving in there, but completely alone. Previously, a couple had been living in this place and there had been a rather peculiar, quite strange situation. And I'm going to tell you why. I actually had a series of doubts regarding the house. Functional details that don't add or take away anything from this story. But the only way to find out was by asking them, the couple who was leaving. That afternoon, I remember I went. They received me quite well, you could say it was normal, and I asked them about these things that had been worrying me. They explained everything to me about the arrangements that had been made, the water problems in the area, the power outages that happen from time to time, things that are common everywhere. But I was very grateful to be able to know all this, since it would be my future home for a long time. But before I left, I asked them why they were leaving, because honestly the house was perfect. And the man from this couple answered me, and I noticed that their demeanor changed. They were no longer calm, they had become very tense and nervous. He told me that it wasn't up to them to tell me things, and that I was the one who had to find a way to learn a bit more about this place. They told me that the neighborhood was quiet, but the house had something they couldn't explain, and that was exactly why they were leaving. I'll tell you the truth, when they told me this, I thought they were just very sensitive people, maybe influenced by something in particular, or just scared. Also because of religion, since many times churches don't give people the tools to be free, but quite the opposite. They want to keep you close and make you need them so that the institution itself doesn't get weaker. Anyway, on the day the rental contract was signed, in the presence of the real estate agent and the actual owners of the apartment, I also asked them if everything was okay in this house or if something had happened that I needed to know about. The owner looked at me intently and asked me why I wanted to know this. It caught my attention that he said this to me. So I simply told him that I was about to sign the contract to live in his house and I wanted to at least know if something had happened there or not. That's all. He told me no, but honestly, I didn't believe a single word he said. Even so, I forgot about this and everything turned out well. Then came the breakup with my partner, moving out on my own, and a new chapter was beginning in my life. A chapter I never imagined would end like this. Once I was settled in the house, I started to realize
something.
And I don't want to fall into the typical phrase that I'm sensitive to the paranormal or anything like that. Nothing like that. It was a series of situations that made me realize that outside the house I felt good, in a good mood, wanting to do things, to move forward. But when I went inside, everything evaporated, and not only did I feel sad and very tired, I was irritable and had very, very negative thoughts, which doesn't help at all when you're trying to move forward. I also felt sick, I felt like throwing up, I felt down, and it was as simple as just going outside. So that this state changes immediately.
I thought it was due to my circumstances, the separation, being apart from my children and everything else. A bit of stress with everything piling up, that must be it. But no, because it was like I would leave here and Everything changed. At least that's what I was. That's what I felt. Well, it turns out that one day winter finally came and I got home from work at around 10:30 at night. I work here a kilometer and a half away. So it was cold and I usually close the doors and leave the heater on so I can find the house warm. So the doors were completely closed, the living room, the bathroom, the bedroom, and there was nowhere else. I heard a noise that went tick-tock, tick-tock, and it was the bathroom cord, which here in Italy is commonly used to have a cord that when you pull it, it automatically activates the house's bell. For safety, in case something happened to you. It really surprised me, but I didn't pay much attention to it. I said it could have been an animal, although it seems nearly impossible that there would be one inside the house. Anyway, that thing was moving side to side, tapping the bathroom walls repeatedly.
On another occasion, while I was in the bedroom, I heard the kitchen faucet turn on all by itself because there was no one else in the house but me. A few seconds later I got up, and as I was approaching the door that leads into the kitchen, I heard a kind of snap or a sharp dry bang at the same time. And I could see how the faucet closed right in front of me, all by itself. I stood there, completely still, looking around the whole room, but there was no one, nothing, so I turned off the light again and quickly went back to my room. These are horrible situations, because in that moment you feel vulnerable. You feel that chill on your back, on your neck, that warns you something is there, but it's not. In fact, surely many of those listening to this story have at some point felt the hairs on their arms stand up, or a chill run through part of their body. A friend of mine who knows about these things told me that many times. This is an alert we have in our electromagnetic field indicating that we are not alone. It could be an entity that is simply passing by out of curiosity, or it could be something bad, waiting to find us vulnerable in order to carry out its plans. Something extremely curious that is currently happening in the house is that when I go to the bathroom, I feel like classical music is playing from the living room. I hear it with incredible clarity, but when I come out, it's gone. There's nothing there. I tried to record it, but it wasn't possible either. It also happened to me many times that I heard someone walking in the living room or in the kitchen. You can hear how they go from one side to the other without any sense or reason. I got up several times. I don't do it anymore because when you turn on the light, you simply find that there's no one there. And going back to what I said before, it's a really awful feeling to return to your room, feeling like someone is behind you walking and you can't see them.
After that, I returned to bed and felt it. And as soon as I lay down and turned off the light, I felt the presence of this person again who was already wandering around the room, already in the room, and then I lay back down again. I started listening to some music, but knowing that while listening to music I felt like it was getting closer made me uneasy. I felt it closer. What do? I get up, I walk around the house again, outside too, and nothing. I go back to bed and then I hear a bang. I go to the bathroom where I heard that noise. And all the soaps, the shampoos, the toothbrushes, everything was on the floor. There was no way for air to get in. Everything, absolutely everything was closed. That night I couldn't sleep. That night I was a bit uneasy. What I did do was curse, pray. Well, honestly, I'm not very religious, so I didn't really do any of that. And shortly after, by the summer of 2021, a friend told me that he wanted to live on his own, that he didn't want to live with his mom anymore. And he asked if I could give him a job here until he found a place to live. And well, I told him yes, that it wasn't a problem. And that's how it happened. He still has the dog he once had. And so, since we worked different shifts, he worked nights, I worked afternoons, we hardly ever saw each other at home. But the dog was always here, and the dog was always sad, always sad, always sad, with a sad look. He refused to go near the bathroom, only looking at it from a distance. He would always glance toward the bathroom, but never approach it. It turns out that a few days ago, we met up there at a bar with him, and he told me about the dog. So he had also noticed the same thing about his dog as his dog. He was very sad, almost always sick since he was in that house, and he also felt that there was something in the bathroom, that it wasn't normal, but he didn't tell me. I didn't want to tell him at first either, so he wouldn't be scared. But he told me that he felt all of that too. He felt that there was something here, that there was a ghost here. In fact, that's why he later told me he didn't want to be here anymore.
One time, it was a weekend, and some friends had come over to eat at the house. None of them knew what was going on. Honestly, I didn't want to discuss it and risk being teased. Plus, I didn't know how to explain it. Anyone who has experienced similar situations will surely understand perfectly. These are complex situations. You don't know how to deal with them. You face something strange every day. And since there isn't a logical explanation, you can't easily find a solution or a way out either. And the feelings you have are very confusing. All the time. Going back to that night with my friends, while we were having dinner and talking, actually, one of them went to the bathroom. When he returned, we noticed he had a peculiar expression on his face. We asked him what had happened to him, always jokingly, and he looked at us. He looks at me in particular and tells me that there's something strange in that bathroom. Because the whole time he felt that something or someone was watching him, he felt it in a terrifying way. I just looked at him, I couldn't do anything else. I listened to him, and in my head I thought that all of this, everything that had happened to me, was true. First it was me, then my other friend, the couple who had left, their dog, and now this other friend. Who, I repeat, knew absolutely nothing about everything that had happened and was happening in that house. And the impact was so great that he couldn't stand to continue with the gathering, and apologizing, he left. He said it wasn't just in the bathroom, there was something not good throughout the whole house, and that they were watching us all the time. He never saw anything, it was just sensations, but they were so intense that he couldn't bear them. I currently live in this house and things have never calmed down. You can still hear footsteps, there are smells that come out of nowhere, noises that you don't know where they're coming from. And what did start happening also has no explanation. It's that the television, either of the two I have, turns on completely by itself even though they're not programmed. My name is Dario. I live in the city of Salto, and I would like to tell you about an experience I had at my job, one of many, as a truck driver. At that time, I was traveling with another person, a great friend, and it left us both stunned.
I have a story that we experienced with my friend, and also at the same time something paranormal happened to him on that same bus.
We had left San Nicolas, Santa Fe. The trip was going perfectly, and at that moment I was sitting as a passenger, making mate, chatting, and something unexpected happened. We were driving as usual, along Route 188, and this happened exactly at kilometer 51. A little before passing through the town of Acevedo in the province of Santa Fe, I was watching the road, meaning we were both paying attention to what was ahead when, just like that, my companion suddenly swerved the steering wheel, almost ending in tragedy. He had clearly seen a big man who crossed the road on a bicycle, and by a miracle, we didn't run him over. The thing is, my companion saw this, but I, as I told you, was looking straight ahead and never saw anything. This really was strange. I associated it with the fact that obviously it must have seemed that way to him, or he was tired, even though he said otherwise. And later, it was a surprise to find out that in that area, many people saw this man and also other people walking aimlessly along the sides of the road. But not only that. At that point, around kilometer 51, interestingly enough, is the Acevedo cemetery. Could it be related to all this? We imagine so. As we neared Pergamino, a few kilometers ahead, we drove calmly along the road with minimal traffic. Then again, my companion suddenly swerved while shouting, "That's the same old man we ran into in Acevedo." But you know what? This time I saw him too. It was incredible that we even stopped the truck, and this person and his bicycle had disappeared. The area had only open fields in that section with no place to hide. And now I'd like to tell you about another incredible experience that I don't think I'll ever be able to forget in my life.
This starts one day in harvest season, I would say around November or December, somewhere between November 20th and the beginning of December. It was a nice warm day. I was going to load up at a field during the wheat harvest, very close to where the Poma family had their accident. There's a road before you get to that curve, way before that takes you out towards Route 7. You don't really cut much distance going that way. It's a dirt road through a town called Los Angeles. I'm hauling cargo in the countryside, and when I was coming back, there are some train tracks, a little curve to your left, and you enter the town. Los Angeles is a small town with an abandoned train station, very few houses. I don't even know if there are 10 houses. And then in the town, you have to turn to the right. Alright, I'm going in that direction, not towards Salto Buenos Aires. And as I'm going and making the turn, I see from a distance that a person dressed in white is crossing. A white that was very visible because it was far away and my headlights weren't lighting it up, and it was a shiny, nice white. He crosses the street from left to right and I saw a person. I turned on the high beams to light up the road better because it was dark, almost leaving the town. And I realized that woman, that lady on the left, on the right hand side, crosses back to the left, all the way behind a tree. And at that moment I realized she was levitating in the air, that she had no legs. It was a beautiful dress, somehow. And I couldn't see her face. I only saw her hair, her face from the side, like that. And at that moment, when she was about 10 or 20 meters away, I realized she had no legs. She was levitating in the air, and she crossed behind a tree, and from there she disappeared. I didn't see her anymore. I got home, and through all that I sped up. I went as fast as I could, not out of fear, but surprised and thinking a lot about what had happened. I get home, my wife, my mother-in-law, and I are there. I was out of it, I wasn't talking. I was thinking to myself, if I tell this, they're going to say I'm lying, that I'm crazy. So I didn't want to tell. And well, it was Friday, I wasn't even eating, I couldn't take a bite, and they asked me what was wrong, and I told them. Sometime later I ran into my daughter's godmother, who is now a friend of my wife, and she told me that she lived in that town for a few years, and that they had a small store there, and that many times they heard people coming to the store knocking, and when they went out there was no one there, or they were inside the store itself. It seemed like people were passing by on the sidewalk, but no one ever did. They never saw anyone.
Thank you.